This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Wendy Griffith. Well, some experts say we could face big problems if a trade war with China keeps going. Yesterday, it rocked financial markets and the Dow fell more than 700 points, the biggest drop of the year. Gary Lane reports on this ongoing battle.
China is receiving much of the blame for the market drop after escalating the trade war with the United States. The Treasury Department designated China a currency manipulator, giving the administration more tools to fight China's latest action. In the face of new tariffs by the Trump administration, China moved to weaken their impact by lowering the country's currency rate to less than 7 yuan to a dollar. That's the weakest level in more than 10 years.
It's a very potent and a kind of a scary weapon to use in any trade battle.
By devaluing the country's currency, China's central bank is giving American consumers an incentive to keep buying their products. This follows last week's announcement from the president that the additional 10% tax on billions in Chinese imports would help level the playing field to protect American workers.
China's taken hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars out of our country, and now we're stopping the theft of American jobs.
Lowering the currency rate means cheaper Chinese goods for consumers. President Trump claims the change amounts to a currency manipulation. He calls a major violation which will greatly weaken China over time. It also resulted in significant drops in Monday's financial markets.
It is an uncertainty about the future of maybe not even their particular company, but in so many companies. And there's a concern about that, the negativity that the media is portraying over all of this.
American farmers may feel the pinch more than U.S. consumers. China's state-owned companies are halting imports of U.S. agricultural products. President Trump has pledged to provide $16 billion in aid to help U.S. farmers during the trade fight. And what impact might the unrest in Hong Kong have on U.S.-China relations going forward? Much depends on Beijing's response to demonstrations there. Troops are poised near the China-Hong Kong border, and propaganda video released by the People's Liberation Army shows soldiers undergoing anti-riot training. If China moves against the pro-democracy protesters with a Tiananmen Square-style massacre, trade talks would likely be called off, followed by likely sanctions imposed on China. In Sydney, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the United States and Australia are united in opposing Chinese aggression.
We Pacific powers agree it's important to shine sunlight on bad behavior, however and whenever it occurs.
As for now, trade negotiations with China are still scheduled to resume in Washington early next month. About the same time, the new tariffs are scheduled to take effect. Gary Lane, CBN News.
And with us now is Stephen Moore. He's an economist with the Heritage Foundation and Freedom Works. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hi, good to be with you.
You too. Well, what does President Trump hope to accomplish in this trade war?
Well, we're in an abusive relationship with China, and it's been going on for years and years, if not decades. And China's behavior is getting worse with every passing day. They have walked back from the agreement that President Trump had with them, or at least he thought that he had with them. They are engaged in all sorts of issues with respect to national security. They're stealing our intellectual property. They have not opened up their markets to our producers the way we've opened up our markets to them. So Trump is fighting the good fight here. I think everybody is frustrated that China doesn't seem to want to get a deal done now. They seem to be backtracking, and there's a lot of frustration in the White House and around the country among businesses that China is almost indignant about this trade situation with the United States. And I still think there will be a deal done, but boy, it's tough sledding.
Stephen, who's getting hurt the worst here, us or China?
Sorry, say again?
Who's getting hurt the worst, us or China?
Well, there's no question we're both getting hurt by this, but China's getting hurt substantially more. I mean, they've seen a huge decline in their growth rate as a result of not having direct, unfettered access to America's consumer market. You just mentioned that previous segment about the devaluation of the yuan. Well, when you do that, you make your people poor, right? It would be the same thing as, if you reached in your pocket and you took out $1 and now it was only worth 80 cents. That's not a way for a country to get rich. And so this is hurting the Chinese substantially. The problem is, as you know, that President Xi doesn't face voters. He's essentially the president for life, and the Chinese hardliners have really taken control in Beijing right now. But this is almost a new Cold War we're in with China right now.
Well, Larry Kudlow said this morning on CNBC that China's economy is crumbling, which is basically what you're saying. Is it weaker than most of us Americans realize?
Look, China's been growing very rapidly now for 20-some years at rates, 10, 11, sometimes 12%. Now, their growth rate, they're still growing. They're just not growing nearly as fast as they had been. The other thing that's happening is because of this trade war, there's a lot of disinvestment. Investors from around the world are pulling their money out of China because they're very worried about the future of that country. So this has inflicted a lot of pain on China, but let's face it, it's inflicted a lot of pain on the United States, too. We've seen what's happened with the stock market the last couple of days. It's been a brutal period. So I'm still hopeful that we get a deal. But right now, the Chinese don't show any inclination of even wanting to make a deal. It seems like they want to fight, not a deal.
Interesting. Well, last question, Stephen. How will this affect our economy? Are we looking at a recession at some point because of this?
No, I don't think a recession. I mean, China is not that important in the United States. There's an old saying that Trump used to say that if we can't trade with China, we sneeze. If they can't trade with us, they catch pneumonia. And so the implications of, this continued stalemate with China are much worse for them than it is for us. But look, on the positive side, if we can get this deal done, and I still think there's a high probability there will be a deal done before the end of this year, then you're going to see the stock market explode with growth. We're going to see a very positive 2020. So I still have my fingers crossed that cooler minds will prevail, and we will get a good deal with China. By the way, it will benefit both countries if we can do that.
Amen to that. Stephen Moore, always good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, North Korea has denounced Washington and Seoul over the start of their joint exercises on Monday. North Korean state TV says Pyongyang sees the drills as an invasion rehearsal and could hinder nuclear negotiations. Meanwhile, the North ramped up its weapons demonstrations today. They fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles. It was the 4th round of missiles set off by the North in the last 2 weeks. South Korea says they're now compelled to develop, test, and deploy powerful physical means essential for national defense. Well, when President Trump addressed the nation about the mass shootings in Texas and Ohio, he cited violence in video games. More than 165 million Americans use video games and billions play worldwide. An online manifesto thought to be authored by the El Paso gunman reportedly mentioned the combat video game Call of Duty. The president says such games, as well as websites on the internet, make it easier for troubled youth to be immersed in violence.
We must stop the glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace. It is too easy today for troubled youth to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence. We must stop or substantially reduce this, and it has to begin immediately.
Joining us now is Tim Winter of the Parents Television Council. Tim, welcome to the show.
Good day from Los Angeles.
All right. Well, what's your response to the president pointing to violence in video games in relation to these latest mass shootings?
Well, most parents instinctively, intuitively know that the entertainment media that a child consumes can have an impact on their children, their behavior, their development, their cognitive development. And scientific research backs that up. As a matter of fact, I was just reading some research from Iowa State that showed that a media environment saturated with violence is among the top 3 contributing factors to the mass shootings that we're seeing playing out in real life. Among the top 3 contributing factors. So the president is right. We have to make sure that Hollywood is stepping up and doing its job. Right now, they are marketing some very gruesome, dark, graphic violence, even in child-friendly franchises. So Hollywood is intentionally now marketing to children very graphic, gruesome, dark, violent scenes, sexual violence. And so we do, as a nation, have to stand up and say, thus far and no farther.
So disturbing. Well, Tim, you once called ultra-violent video games dress rehearsals for slaughter. Explain what you mean.
Yeah, when you go to a movie theater or watch television and you're seeing a violent scene, you're certainly having that impressed on your brain. you're intaking that. But when it comes to violent video games, you're actually the perpetrator. Your hand is on the proverbial trigger. You're instigating the violence. You're getting either points or advancing through the gameplay by successfully slaughtering other human beings. So it's more than just sitting back and being a passive consumer of violent media. You are in the middle of the process, and that's why video games can be so troubling.
And you mentioned the young children being targeted as well. What do we know about the impact of violent video games on children?
Yeah, this is now almost 70 years of research we have from all forms of violent media, not just video games, but also movies and television as well. But what we do know is that children who consume and participate in violent media are more likely to become aggressive themselves. They see violence as a resolution to their problems. What's interesting is they also lead children to live in fear, greater fear about their surroundings, that there is a likelihood of violence even greater than what the real reality is in terms of the violence around them. They live in fear. So it is multiple, it is real, and parents need to step up and speak out. Our policyholders need to do their job, and Hollywood needs to do its job too.
Amen to that. Tim Winter, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Coming up, what's going on in the abortion industry and the latest from pro-life activists. And before we go to the break, here's a look at what's trending on CBNNews.com.
Thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
With the country still reeling after 2 recent mass shootings, many conservatives and Christians are focusing on abortion and the dissonance our country has between the response to mass shootings and the response to abortion. Joining us now on the topic is constitutional law attorney Jenna Ellis. Jenna, welcome to Newswatch.
Thanks for having me.
Jenna, do you see this as problematic, this dissonance we have?
Absolutely. And, I think that Rush Limbaugh actually put it very well when he talked about a culture of devaluing the sanctity of human life. And when we as a culture don't understand how to protect even the smallest of these, and we have this culture of violence, it's not just the video games that you're talking about with your last guest. This is something that when we have such a culture that is glorifying abortion, and when we're saying, like there's a California bill to protect students' so-called right to access abortion, and they're holding signs saying, make abortion great again. This is violent murder against human beings on a daily basis that is the most mass murder of human beings daily. And so when we have that dissonance between protection of the smallest lives, then we shouldn't necessarily be surprised when we have a culture that then will go out and commit mass atrocities against human beings. And so this is something where we as Christians really need to understand how to reach the culture with truth and bring God and truth back into the culture about why every human, from conception all the way until natural death, not medical intervention of any kind, then is what we have to teach and make sure that we understand that all human beings are made in the image of God and worthy of protection.
Jenna, how do we do that, though? How, as Christians and believers, how should we respond to this? Well, as you are, but how do we make it real to people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And often a lot of people ask me how to reach specifically millennials, that's my generation, and really confront people with these issues when they're just so completely, they have this cognitive dissonance. And I always say to ask people questions and challenge them with their worldview rather than just speaking truth to them and hoping that they hear it. Ask them questions about why they think abortion is okay, why they are so horrified by these mass shootings, but then ask them, well, what about abortion? And try to just ask these questions and confront their cognitive dissonance where they're at, because it's much harder to have to defend your own worldview perspective in wake of these types of headlines than it is to just sit back and reject and say, well, that's your belief and don't force it on me. So I think that as Christians, we need to stand firm. We need to speak up. We need to make sure that we're speaking truth boldly, even in the midst of this current culture that will make fun of us, that will, call us racist, call us bigots, call us, crazy names just for being Trump supporters. Talk about how this isn't about politics as much as it is about truth. And this is about what the evidence shows, science shows, that life begins at conception and that human life is uniquely made in the image of God and separate and distinct from any other life. And so we have to be willing to boldly challenge that, and then also pray that we can influence every person in our sphere of influence. Our church has to be active in our communities. We as individuals have to be active in our friend network. We can't just rely on Congress, for example, to put these types of measures in place for gun safety. Well, that's not going to change hearts and minds. We as Christians are called to be the light and salt in the world. We need to be going out daily and actually doing that and accomplishing it.
Well, you are doing it beautifully, Jenna. You're one of the best spokespeople I've ever heard on this topic, and I pray that your voice is heard loud and clear and that others follow suit. Jenna, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, and I hope so too. Thank you.
Still ahead, you may think artificial sweeteners are helpful for you, but we'll show you how they can actually harm your health, including your brain and your heart. We'll have that story when we come back.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the Sleep Doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're going to bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
In
so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Well, if you drink or eat anything with artificial sweeteners, you might want to reconsider. Research shows they can hurt our brains and our hearts. And believe it or not, they don't even help us lose weight. Lori Johnson has the story.
This country's weight problem is only getting worse. The CDC reports a staggering 71% of adults qualifies as overweight or obese. The result? Things like heart disease, cancer, diabetes. In June, the New England Journal of Medicine reported the whole world is getting fatter and paying a price. 4 million deaths, 60% caused by obesity, but the other 40% by just being overweight.
Health experts say the root cause of our weight problem can be summed up in one word: sugar. Most Americans consume about 160 pounds of it a year. Oftentimes, it's hidden in foods you'd never expect, like yogurt, peanut butter, pasta sauce, and bread. Then other times, it's right out front, like in soda. This one can contains more than 9 teaspoons of sugar.
It's no wonder so many people turn to diet sodas containing zero-calorie artificial sweeteners to reduce their sugar intake. But that's a bad choice for a number of reasons. A new Boston University study revealed people who drank diet soda have 3 times the risk of developing dementia and having a stroke. And that's people who just drink 1 a day.
So artificial sweeteners, we think, are much worse than we ever thought.
The Cleveland Clinic's Dr. Michael Roizen says artificial sweeteners like aspartame, saccharin, and sucralose can disrupt what's known as our microbiome.
Your microbiome is the bacteria inside your gut. Those artificial sweeteners cause a separate breed of bacteria to grow inside you.
Neurologist David Perlmutter says artificial sweeteners throw off the delicate balance of good and bad bacteria.
The bacteria that live within our gut nurture the brain when they're treated right. They reduce inflammation, for example. Inflammation is the key player that causes multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and even Alzheimer's, and coronary artery disease, and diabetes for that matter as well.
Perlmutter says in addition to avoiding artificial sweeteners, consider taking probiotics to increase good bacteria and prebiotics to maintain healthy levels.
We consume artificial sweeteners to control our weight, but believe it or not, a number of scientific studies show they actually cause us to gain weight.
One reason goes right back to the gut.
The body thinks it's starving and holds on to every calorie that a person consumes. So here are people consuming diet drinks and gaining weight. And that doesn't seem to make any sense. And yet, we now see that it's happening because of changes in the gut bacteria. The risk of developing diabetes is dramatically increased 2-fold in people who drink a lot of sugarless beverages. Who knew?
Nutritionist J.J. Virgin says the artificial sweeteners stevia, xylitol, erythritol, and monk fruit appear to be better choices for the gut. However, they can still lead to weight gain.
But there's also a phenomenon that happens called calorie dysregulation that they saw with artificial sweeteners. When you eat something that's got a sweet taste with no calories, your body can't calibrate the degree of sweetness with how many calories, so it causes you to tend to overeat.
Then there's our own DNA. Genetics predispose an estimated 3/4 of us to have an addiction to sweets, meaning the more we take in artificial sweeteners, the more we crave all sweets. That's why health experts recommend removing the taste for sweets altogether.
Sweet is a learned taste. If you go off sweet, if you go off sugar, if your brain doesn't get used to it, if your taste buds don't get used to it, you can avoid it, and that's a much healthier state.
Virgin proved this theory with 700 sugar addicts.
First, we taper down for a week. We don't cook cold turkey, but then we lower their sugar impact down. We start using more spices and more savory and getting enough protein in and getting healthy fats in. And then at the end of 2 weeks, we go back and test. And these sugar addicts told me that sweet food just tasted gross.
So while eating too much sugar is definitely hazardous, artificial sweeteners can be just as bad for you, maybe worse. That's why the healthiest solution is to remove all sweets from your diet, both real and fake. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Still struggling with that, but we can do it. All right, you can see more important health stories tonight, including how you can overcome some diseases that may travel in your family line and live a long, healthier life. That's by watching Healthy Living tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Well, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Come home to the Southern Gospel Station from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern Gospel favorites. CBN Southern Gospel. Available now at cbnradio.com.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
The Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Before we go, a reminder to check out our CBN News Daily Rundown podcast with Caitlin Burke. She gives a behind-the-scenes look at a key story in the news every single day. You can find it at cbnnews.com on the show tab. Click on its title to listen and subscribe. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of Newswatch. You can find more on the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. You can also watch CBN News programs anytime on our CBN News channel. We hope you'll join us next time. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye and God bless.